Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Cash That. This is your host, Joe Dellera, and this episode is once again brought to you by our good friends at Props.cash. Look, you guys know the tool. We talk about it every episode, and you guys can get it for your first month for 25% off with code Dellera25. This is probably one of the number one tools that I use that most people in the that are betting player props and are successfully betting player props use, especially at this point in the season. You have a lot of games. We're halfway done with the season. That makes this tool even more valuable, I think, because you get to see some more of that trend data. There's more things that are relevant for this current season, and it's all available to you, including their projections, some of their modeling, and where the line has moved and how they've performed on that hit rate over the last couple of games. So you can get that for 25% off your first month with code Dellera25. Now, guys, if you guys are watching this on the YouTube channel, you guys might notice that we do not have producer Corey here. Producer Corey is sick. I'm powering through my own thing. You could call it my flu game, but we have a very special guest here. We have Prop Bomb. Prop Bomb, how you doing today, man? It's good to see you. Good to have you on video, and good for all the listeners to kind of get to hear you for once.
Yeah, it's great to be on here. Joe just messaged me earlier this week. He's like, "We got to get you on here, man." And I was like, "Yeah," I wanted to reach out to you too. I don't think I've been on here since like last season. It's good to be here and good to chat
right in the
NBA.
final.
Yeah, where it's full steam NBA.
Exactly. And it's like a perfect time too, because there's so much stuff going on in the NBA right now. We're halfway through the season and a couple of things to talk about, honestly. And one of the things is, honestly, it's like, who better to talk about a Miami Heat trade than Prop Bomb, right? So the Miami Heat just traded Kyle Lowry, some first round picks, like a little bit of protections there. And then in exchange for Terry Rozier to join the Miami Heat. I really need to know, like, what are your thoughts on this trade? Do you think it's redundant a little bit to Tyler Hero, or do you think that this was a move that like they really needed to make in order to kind of take that next step up and kind of push themselves further along the Eastern Conference?
Yeah, I mean, I freaking love the trade, man. I did not like Lowry at all this season. I thought he just didn't seem bought into the whole Heat culture. You could just tell. And I mean, I think like he was 0 for his last 18 3-pointers before the trade. So like, I just think his mind was somewhere else.
Yeah.
I'm looking at all these like Terry Rozier videos. Like he idolizes Dwayne Wade. He's a guy that I can easily see fit into the culture that's the Miami Heat, the toughness. And I think he's going to fit right in like glue. I mean, I don't even think it's going to hurt Hero that much. I think it's actually going to help him in a sense that he's not, when Rozier has the command of the ball, that's going to free up Hero in opposite directions too, right? So Hero has possessions. Rozier's presence of being that 3-level scorer is going to like give him better looks. So I don't think that's going to hurt at all. I think it's an upgrade over Lowry, and it's a step in the right direction. I'm glad that Pat Riley finally made a move.
Yeah, no, I thought it was a great move for Miami, especially considering like I think that the first round pick can get a little hairy, right? Because of the way the protections kind of come off of it. It's unprotected, I think, in 2028. It's lottery or protected in 2027 or something like that, right? So that could get a little scary, but when you have that type of institutional like structure and success over such a long period of time, it's like that pick is probably not going to be like tremendous at any point in time. I do think that from a fit perspective, I agree with you. Like, I think this is a great move for Miami. It's an instant upgrade to the offense. Like you said, Lowry just like hasn't really been doing anything for them. And you kind of get a little bit more stability there, especially with like Butler misses a lot of games. Like he just does. It's a little, it's a little rough to generate offense, So I think Miami too, like I think one of the things that I specifically didn't like about Miami this year was that I felt that the way that they're often injured, I didn't like they lost so many like what I thought were key rotational pieces and like Strus, Vincent, etc. Adding Scary Terry, I think, dramatically bolsters the floor of the team. And maybe, like instead of looking where you're in a position where you're in the play-in, maybe you can actually secure like a top 6 seed. What are your thoughts on like where Miami is able to finish the regular season?
Yeah, so here's the thing too, and we both like acknowledge this coming into the season or like midway. Miami also had like a tendency of just having these things called turd quarters or just like terrible third quarters, and you would see their offense even in the fourth quarter as well. Their offense would kind of drop down when the starters were out of the game, And you have a guy like Terry Rozier who's in there that can kind of like be in the stints where, Hero or Butler are out, and you can get put in Jaime Jaquez in there. I just think it provides a lot of offense, which they clearly lacked, and they needed a type of energy boost. But as far as like rest of season outlook for the Miami Heat, to answer your question, I put them around like 3, 4, 5, that kind of area. I probably would say number 1 would probably be Boston, and then you got Milwaukee, Philadelphia, and then I'd put the Heat right there.
Yeah. I mean, I think that the East is pretty tight. It's like I think that there's definitely a couple of tiers, right? I think that Boston is in a clear number 1 tier on their own. I think that Milwaukee and the Sixers are honestly in the next tier. And then I kind of have like the Cavs, the Knicks, the Heat, the Pacers, and the Magic, like to a degree, right? Like
Magic
all kind of
Yeah,
like all kind of lumped in together. Orlando's been dealing with injuries. The Pacers are dealing with the Tyrese Halliburton injury. The Knicks now are dealing with injuries, and the Cavs have been dealing with injuries. All these teams have been hurt. So it's been hard to see like exactly how good they are. But I do think that like they seem to be secure within like at least the 4 to 8 range. I can't fathom a scenario where they drop further than that. So I do think that the floor for them is a lot better moving forward. And we'll kind of talk a little bit about the betting implications for the Hornets in a little bit when we talk about the Wednesday slate. But I do want to get your thoughts. This was awesome, right? Did you like the games on Monday night? We had Joel Embiid, 70-point game. 70-point game. Kevin Durant's like reaction was like 70, like it was just awesome, right? And
I saw that, yeah.
It was awesome. And then it was on the anniversary of Kobe Bryant scoring the 81 points. So it was like really cool. Like it's like always there's that NBA like aura or mystique, whatever.
Do you
right?
think the players knew that going in? Like they definitely kind of had that in their back.
Yeah, I think they might have. Like Embiid posted afterwards, he was like Kobe, like with an exclamation point.
Yeah.
So I think it was definitely something that might have been on their mind. Then you have Karl-Anthony Towns, right? The guy, I was watching this, I was like, this would be so funny for so many reasons. It's just so funny for so many reasons if he scores more points than Embiid. Doesn't score more points than Embiid, and the Hornets lose the game. Like, what do you think? Like, how do you even feel about like how do you score that many points and lose?
I actually watched that whole game, quarter 1 through quarter 4, fully. He had 44 points going into halftime, finished with 63, but I believe the Timberwolves were up by like 15 points against the Hornets. And then what started to happen was Ant started to become more passive. Like he just became a full-time facilitator, something he's not used to doing. And the offense started to shift more toward Karl-Anthony Towns, like forcing his own shots. And what that happened was like the offense became so predictable, one-dimensional, and the Hornets just took advantage of that. Like the Timberwolves were just unserious the whole entire second half. And they were just, rooting for the whole milestone thing, and it was embarrassing to see it all fall down. Still respect for Karl-Anthony Towns because like the first half was really impressive.
Yeah, dude, that amount of points is just like insane. And I mean, I think the list of players
really
to like even like to score that many points is just it's just not very long. So I mean, very, very impressive performance individually. It kind of sucks. Like you always hope, like when when you see performances like that, you're like you almost hope that the team wins just because the performance is so incredible. Because otherwise, it does kind of leave like not like a little bit of a sour taste, I'm sure, in your mouth. But it does bring you to a question of
just to interrupt real quick. This is just like something I was keeping in the back of my mind. Whenever you see like these players chase these like high scoring milestones, I think a good like betting thing to do is to take the other opponent's team to cover like the spread, or you know what I mean? Like because their offense is just not going to look,
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's definitely like an accurate spot, right? Like they definitely got out of their rhythm. Like you said, like Anthony Edwards, like he was sick apparently too, because like I was on his points over. I liked the matchup, and then he popped in the injury report as sick. So there's always like some wonky things there that can kind of change the analysis of the game. But I think you're right. Like with, especially for a guy like Towns, who is not necessarily like the primary point of the offense. Like the Minnesota Timberwolves are not like running plays regularly every time to have Karl-Anthony Towns score like on every possession down the floor. If it happens, it happens, but that's not what they're trying to do. It's not like with the Sixers late game, Embiid. Like that's their best way to win.
Yeah.
So I think that you're right there. Like if it's taking a team out of what they normally do, definitely gets a little bit hairier.
Definitely.
Now I want to pivot to just a little bit on the MVP, right? Joel Embiid now is the favorite to win the MVP. Do you think it's his to lose at this point, or is it just like a little too early? And I know you're not a big futures guy, but like just from a narrative perspective, do you think that it's like his to lose right now, or is it just that like it's a little bit tough and you kind of want to see like I don't know if I'd want to enter the market with a bet on Joel Embiid right now at like plus 120.
Yeah, and especially too, I mean, just to preface with Joel Embiid, the run that he's on right now is just the stretch that he's on is historic. It's hasn't been done in a while, especially for a big man. It's like Shaq-like. But the problem is though with the MVP award is you have to be healthy and you have to play 65 games, and you have to watch out for that because Embiid has like I think like 8 or 9 more games left until he's disqualified from winning that award. So that's something that I'm hesitant. I wouldn't want to place a bet on because you have very little wiggle room to work with.
Yeah, because I think that a bet on Embiid right now is not only a bet on nobody else like surpassing him, but it's also a bet on him not getting hurt. So it's like you're betting on his health. And that to me is very concerning, especially for a team that has title aspirations. He's expressed those title aspirations. Like, I don't think, especially now that he has an MVP like in his cabinet, I don't know that he's going to like if there's a situation where it's like, hey, you can push it here. I don't know how apt he's going to necessarily be to do that. But
yeah, he's more forward thinking this year for sure. Yeah.
I think so, absolutely. So I think that right now you definitely shouldn't be betting on Embiid to win the MVP, even if I think it's his to lose. I think there's a lot of factors going around right now that kind of can go against that, and it's just a little bit too it's too variable at this point in the season. We're only halfway done. There's still a lot of games left here, so you really don't know what's going to happen for a plus 120 bet right now.
Definitely.
The one thing that is crazy, though, too, this has been like one of the biggest couple days in the NBA of late, and it's exciting, but Adrian Griffin is now out as the Milwaukee Bucks head coach, and it's crazy. Like, the team has obviously been they're playing, their defense has been questionable, right? But overall, they've been playing pretty well. The record's good. They're second in the East. They're 30-13, and you get fired. It's kind of one of those spots where you're just like, man, like what the heck did I do wrong here? But it's definitely an interesting scenario, right? And the thing that's interesting too is it looks like they're reaching out to Doc Rivers to be the coach of the Milwaukee Bucks. What do you think about that potential fit? It seems like they could have had Nick Nurse in the offseason, didn't go that way, and went with Adrian Griffin. Do you think that Doc Rivers is a good coach for them, or are we just going to see like another Doc Rivers second round exit here?
Yeah, it's funny. It actually is officially the head coach. I was watching TNT and they just announced it during the halftime.
Oh,
so he's official now.
Now it's official.
Yeah, now it's
breaking
official.
news.
But it was very strange for me to see that news, especially seeing like they're 31-13, but you get to kind of see what happened behind the scenes with the team. Apparently, like Giannis started to like not have faith in him and lose trust in him. The team, all the players kind of like, and at that point, you kind of have to do something quickly, especially for a team that has like championship type aspirations as the Bucks. But the Doc Rivers fit. Apparently, what I was hearing was that Adrian Griffin was using Doc Rivers as like sort of like a consultant for like head coaching. Did you hear about that? And now he's like, it was really interesting. Is now the new head coach. So it's very, very weird. Doc Rivers, like he needs like a redemption story. I think at this point, he's just known to choke playoff leads.
And And
Yeah,
like
yeah,
in our action Slack, what is it? I think Aisha said she was like his voice just recovered, like so, which is funny.
yeah,
But I think that the fit is like interesting, right? I think from like a locker room perspective, and we've talked about this off air, and we'll kind of talk about it a little bit more now. But one of the things that I always think is interesting is like locker room stuff. So it's like you look at the
yeah,
team and you're just like, well, like this team is great on paper,
yeah,
but then it's like Dame was kind of out on Griffin immediately, like early on
yeah.
in camp. Then you lose Middleton and you lose Lopez, and then you lose Giannis now, like more recently. Um,
Well, to
and
lose
ownership,
Giannis was
my
the biggest
understanding is that,
thing. Yeah, yeah. To
and
to
that was it
lose
because he was
Giannis was the biggest thing, though,
Giannis.
Joe, because he's the one that brought him in.
Yeah, like it was
Yeah,
Giannis's guy. Adrian Griffin was Giannis's guy. Like he's the guy that Giannis wanted, and then like you
correct.
miss out
Yeah,
on a guy like Nick Nurse. Now you're kind of in this scenario here. It is definitely interesting. When you're looking at some of these scenarios, I think with bad teams and they fire the coach, a lot of times I'm like, I want to bet on that team because like against the spread, sometimes like I think that they kind of perform a little bit better. They have a little bit more moxie. They play a little bit more loose. What do you think about betting on like the Bucks, a team that's 30-13, even from a player prop perspective, when you undergo this type of coaching change? Do you, like are you willing to like jump into the market right away, or do you want to kind of take a little bit of a wait and see approach because it is so
yeah.
different, or like especially from a player prop perspective?
Yeah, very interesting question. As far as like what I would do, I think the Bucks though, like I just feel like knowing the locker room, they probably are gonna like rally all together, and
Mhm.
we all are gonna accept this new coach, and we'll be better from it. But what I will do as a prop better is I'm not touching them for like 3 or 4 games, honestly. We saw what happened with Quinn Snyder when he came to the Atlanta Hawks last season. Like they use certain players differently. Like I remember there was a thing where I saw like he was using Clint Capella more, like then the other coach was using him. And you want to look out for those certain things. And I think like it's better just from just in general, just to wait and see and see like how certain players react to new coaching.
Yeah, I think it's
Yeah,
definitely
so for it's a
interesting
wait
too.
and
Like
see.
we Yeah, like we can take some things, right, from like what we watched them do with Philly, where you had like dynamic pick and roll with like Maxey and Embiid, and
Yeah,
Harden and Embiid, right? I would imagine that Doc wants to bring a little bit more of that to Milwaukee, between maybe Dame and Giannis, because they haven't really done that. It's been one of those things like you watch the games and you're like, why are they not just pressing this button? Because like it should work, it should be unstoppable, and they
yeah,
don't do it. So, like, I'm hoping to see that. If I see that, that's going to be kind of one of those things. It's like, all right, new coach. I have a lot more faith in what they're going to be able to do, and like whether maybe Doc Rivers can bring out the best qualities in this team. So I'm definitely curious to see. I'm hoping that it's successful from like a basketball perspective. I think they could be
yeah.
so dynamic, and but it's definitely just something to kind of keep an eye out for.
Yeah, it was weird
Um,
too as well. With the Milwaukee Bucks, something that like I never really understood was when I would watch their games and I would look at their rotations, they would always open the fourth quarter with Chris Middleton in the game, and they would take out Dame and
mhm.
Giannis. And I was like, if you want to put your foot on the gas, and start building like a nice fourth quarter, like why are you taking out your two starters right away? It's like I'm interested though because I think there could be some new rotations that we haven't seen yet for the big three in Milwaukee that Doc wants to mess around
Yeah,
with.
and I think that Yeah, and I think that's a great point too, because especially with like the derivative markets, right? Like first quarter, first half, those type of markets. And then even if you're betting
Yeah,
on a quarter by quarter market, like first half, first quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter, whatever, those are all things to kind of keep an eye on, just because that could really, he might be able to like show his hand immediately. And like, it's something that we can pick up within 2 games. Like, all right, this is consistent. Like this is working. This is what they're doing.
yeah,
But it also might change things. Like if you're betting on a guy's first quarter props because you say like, well, their rotation is they play the entire first quarter, that might be totally different now. So definitely keep
correct.
an eye out for that and be careful of that.
Yeah,
Especially in this game, coming up against the Cleveland Cavaliers. So let's start diving into the slate. And honestly, I think that game is interesting too. Like right off the bat, the
all
Bucks
right.
play a pretty important divisional game against the Cleveland Cavaliers, who have won 8 straight games. Actually, Cavs have been really, really good, especially defensively. This is gonna be a tough task. I think they're 6.5, 7-point favorites at home right now. The Milwaukee Bucks are. Historically, like, this was a spot that Budenholzer dominated in. The Bucks dominated divisional opponents against the spread, at home, on the road, whatever, dominated. Now, you're in that year after him. I'm a little nervous, especially because of what you said. It's one of those spots, like, people might want to back Milwaukee, but Cleveland's been so good, and they haven't really even been that healthy. On dunks and threes, the Cavs are actually better in adjusted net rating. They're plus 4.1 adjusted net compared to Milwaukee's plus 2.5. So it's definitely like a little bit of an interesting spot. I would lean the Cavs in this game. I'll probably dive into it a little bit more, but I would probably want to take that 7 points on the road.
The Cavs, I'm very surprised with the yeah, we have a little bit of a delay, but I'm very surprised with the Cavs. Like, Garland's out, Evan Mobley's out. I was so out on the Cavs just to even make the playoffs. I thought that team was going to collapse. And you're seeing how they're performing in January. Defenses has not taken a step back, and they're playing slow. They're rebounding the ball extremely, extremely solid, and they're playing playoff level basketball. So I'm really, really honestly impressed with the Cavaliers right now.
Yeah, one player prop, and like one spot that we'd always been kind of looking at against the Bucks has been like lead guards against the Bucks have just dominated. They've shredded them, right?
Yeah.
What do you think about Donovan Mitchell in this spot? This season, he's got 34 points and 31 points against Milwaukee. Has really been good, in both games. But I would say, like, his points line, it's pretty high, man. Like, 31.5 points is just it's an extremely high line, I think, for Donovan. He's averaging 27.8 points this season, and it's kind of one of those things, like, when he goes over, he goes like way over, like he's scoring 40 almost. Is it a spot that you're nervous about, not only because of like what his performance is, or are you like a little nervous about, like, maybe Doc does something different and it immediately shores up the defense that Milwaukee's got for lead guards?
Yeah. I'm not touching it personally. You don't know what Doc Rivers is going to adjust, or the assistant coach, now that they kind of have a little bit more voice, what they want to maybe implement going into the next game. But yeah, I mean, it's the whole like cheat code, guards versus the Bucks normally do well. That line is juice on the over. I was just checking 31.5, so it does make sense. It can go either way. This is, again, though, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but this is just a stay away from me.
No, and I think that's good advice, though, because I think that it's one of those things where you can end up where you have a really exciting slate like this. Like, there's a lot of games, a lot of exciting matchups. You can end up with way too many bets, and it makes a lot of sense to be like, no, like, I don't want that. So I wanted to ask you from like a process perspective, right, before we get into the next game. When you're betting, I know, like, you usually don't have like crazy cards. Like, you usually have like maybe 3 or 4 picks on a night, right?
Yeah.
You don't really go too crazy. How do you like contain yourself? Because I think that a lot of people struggle with that. Like, they see a slate, they see a lot of games, they're like, this has to hit, this has to hit, this has to hit.
Yeah.
How do you contain yourself? Like, what's your process for picking and like settling on what you like to, or what you want to play?
Well, yeah, for starters, I don't let the slate size, whether it's a 13-game slate or a 3-game slate, dictate like how many like props I'm going to give out that day. It's just a matter of like what the value is, and you have to always just kind of like remind yourself that. I was just telling my chat in Discord, like, we have 135 days left until NBA is over. Like, we have plenty of time to make the money. You don't need to be chasing like all this ridiculous stuff. And also, too, it's like when you add so much to your plate on that day, you're adding so much variance to happen. So like you can go like 5-3 and how do I say it? So like if you go 3-1 compared to like 5-3, the 3-1 is actually better because of the less variance and the less juice that you're drinking if you're doing risk to win. But yeah, no, I mean, just for me, like, just to go back to the main point, it's just like if I see value or not. I mean, I'm not going to let the size of the slate, like, convince me to like play a lot quantity. It's just whatever whatever happens.
No, and that's really like some great advice for people out there, just because like you said, it's like when you're betting like 10 things, you have to be better than that. Like you have to win more, like in order to be profitable. Because if you're 5-5, you lost money.
Yep.
Like especially if you're betting things that are -110. Obviously, if like if there's some plus money in there, then it's a little bit of a different scenario. But I think at the end of the day, that's why like people look at it and it's like the only thing that really matters is it's not like necessarily your win loss. It's not necessarily like even your units won. It's your ROI. And I think that's one of the things that you're good about doing too, is like when you put out plays, it's like you almost never do like a 1.5 or 2 unit play. Everything's almost like, oh, it's like 1 unit. Like I hate it. Something about it rubs me the wrong way too. Like when I see it like on social media, and I'm like, how is every play that somebody like? I'm like, I don't understand how like every play that somebody can have is like this one's 5 units, this one's 3 units, this one's 2 units. I'm like,
yeah,
your unit structure just makes no sense to me. Like I don't understand it then.
Yeah, look, and sometimes I fall victim to it too. Like there are some days where, like yesterday, I had Domantas Sabonis to have less than 10 assists, and I really thought
Yeah.
that it should have been a 1.5 unit play, and it was a 1 unit. But I just like to be safe with everything. That's just the nature of how I bet. And yeah, it's freaking ridiculous. I see people with the 3 units and the 5 units. Like, like what's your whole bankroll management looking like on the losing days?
Yeah, like it just doesn't make any sense to me. So it's always something that I think is like a hallmark of like somebody that you can trust. It's like, and like a little bit more transparency. It's like when you're betting 1 unit or like maybe 1.5, or like you can at least explain it. Like when I bet a ladder, I'll say like this is kind of like a 2 unit play because I'm betting the alts to get there. But that's like the way that I would kind of look at it. So it just kind of depends on what we're looking at there. But those are rare circumstances. That's not something that's happening every day on every play where everything is weighted differently. So I understand weighting things differently if you are betting on an edge, like if you're modeling, so then you have different percentages based on like I have this percentage of an edge on this market, so like I'm gonna bet it into it bigger. But like for a lot of the things, I'm like, this just doesn't make sense. Like you see like 30 units and I'm like, that's just fake. Like
No,
that's
yeah. 401k, like goat and mega whale. You saw that stuff.
Yeah, like whatever. I'm like, this is fucking nuts. But let's go back. Let's go into the rest of the slate, right? So one of the gross games is the Hornets versus the Pistons. We both have some thoughts on this game, and I want to get that one prop out that we both kind of like for a guy on the Detroit Pistons. If you wanna tip us in there right now, but I know we both like one of their like the center for the Detroit Pistons. So what do we like here, Jordan? Or prop bomb?
Yeah, you can call me Jordan. It doesn't even matter at this point.
All right, whatever. Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. So yeah, we were both, Joe and I, going into the call, we were looking at Jalen Duren over 11.5 rebounds against the Charlotte Hornets, and we were looking at just overall his last 2 games. He was he played 30 minutes the game before last game because he was in foul trouble with 5 fouls. The game before that, he had 4 fouls. He had to defend Giannis, so it's understandable. And when you're having to defend Giannis, that means that you are more so looking to contest his shots and be away from the rim than rebound. Now you're facing the Charlotte Hornets, a lot more closer game, a lot more faster paced game. And I mean, according to Fantasy Pros, like last 15 games, the Charlotte Hornets allowing the 3rd most opposing rebounds to centers. I mean, there's no Mark Williams. Nick Richards, I don't know if he's playing. They're getting eaten alive by centers. Even the PRA stands out to me for Jalen Duren. But we both lean the over 11.5. It's -110 right now at MGM.
Yeah, I really like the spot, honestly. I think it's an excellent spot for Duren. He had 17 rebounds against them earlier in the season. That was back in
I didn't even
October.
mention that.
So obviously a lot of games since then, right? But I think it's a smash spot. And you definitely want a line shop because this line is kind of moved around. And I think what I've noticed is like certain books, get hit faster because they just have a higher usage rate, right? And it's one of those things where a lot of times, like, we'll put out a play and it'll be available at every book at the exact same line. But if you are only betting on one book for whatever reason, like, let's say I bet something at DraftKings and it's like -110, and then it's also like it's -115 at FanDuel, and then it's -115 at MGM. It might get bet in like one spot like rapidly first, like DraftKings, then FanDuel, whatever, and the MGM line sometimes like sits there and doesn't move. So you got to be
GM
using
is
the
normally like,
tools. I use Yeah, like the MGM moves a little slow. So I use like the Action Network app. I know Prop Bomb uses the Action Network app as well. You can use it for, not only your lines, right? Not only like for like regular lines, like whether it's sides, totals, money line, you can use it for player props too.
yeah.
So that's one of the spots, and I like to use it for tracking purposes to keep myself, moving. You also can do it on props.cash. Props.cash also has like a line shopper too. So you can see, what the odds are on the over, the under, on, some of the major books at least that they have there. So you can add that. You can add it to a card. You can kind of make like some parlays if you want to. So it's just another tool that you get included in that props.cash membership that you can get for, for that monthly rate. So really can't go wrong, especially because it's all just right there. It's all in the one spot for you. But you got a line shop. It really does make a difference in terms of how profitable you can be in any given game. But with Terry Rozier out of Charlotte,
Okay.
a lot of people are talking about LaMelo Ball. LaMelo Ball should see a usage bump. And I know that you did some research, and that was indicated. It was what, like a 3% bump or so?
5% bump. Ooh, even more.
5%. 5%.
Yeah.
I wish we got raises like that. So, but so look, 5% bump. He's keeping up with the rate of inflation here, and 5% bump is pretty significant. But I think that the books have really like locked in on that. Like, I feel like LaMelo is the guy that they're like, oh, like people want to bet on LaMelo. Like we know what's up here. Do you think there's a player that might actually benefit a little bit more, like a little bit sneakily, in terms of what his prop is and like what his output is, regardless of usage?
Yeah. We were talking about a little bit before the call. Surprisingly enough, it's Miles Bridges. Miles Bridges sees the highest bump in his points per game when you take out Terry Rozier and Gordon Hayward, according to Roto Grinders Court IQ. 208-minute sample size that they kind of essentially put it all together, and they rate it like per 36 minutes. He's averaging around 27.9 points per game per 36 minutes without Rozier, Hayward off the court. And we're seeing him the last couple of games. He's seeing like 38 plus minutes just with how depleted Charlotte is right now. The line's 24.5. Slight lean on the over for me for there. And then even a guy like Nick Richards, I was taking his over. Well, this is a little tough because he's going to get the Jalen Duren matchup. But Nick Richards benefits a lot with LaMelo Ball passing to him. He actually has most of his points coming from LaMelo Ball. And that's considering the fact that LaMelo has missed like 10 to 15 games. So like that tells you something. They clearly have a connection. And Pistons are top 10 or bottom 10 in points in the paint allowed. And this over under is 230. Oh, it's actually kind of low, 235.5, lower than what I was expecting. But it's a close spread, so you'd love to see that.
Yeah, I mean, LaMelo's scoring 32.2 points per game without Rozier this season in 9 games. So, I mean, monster numbers, obviously, from LaMelo. But it does feel like with his line sitting at, what's his line sitting at? 27.5. It does feel like you're betting high into it, if that makes sense. Like you're betting on ceiling, which I like don't love to do, especially with betting on overs.
This is the bet. This
What
is the
do
bet
we
you
like?
take. So it's actually kind of funny because yesterday or last game, I took LaMelo's under 5.5 first quarter points, but that line is still there even without Rozier. It's still 5.5 first quarter points. Give me the over this time. I like the over against Detroit Pistons. He's going to play 8 to 10 minutes. You're not going to have Rozier ball hogging and shooting the ball whenever he can't. It's like -135, but I like that. That would be like my play if I'm taking a LaMelo prop. over 5.5
That's
first quarter points. What do you think about
that's
that?
fun. I think that's fun too, and I think it's a great spot against Detroit, who's a relatively weak team overall. So I do like
Yeah.
that spot. I think it's a pretty good angle for LaMelo. One player that I'm curious to see is Brandon Miller.
Oh,
Brandon Miller's
him
been
too. Yeah.
awesome the last couple games. 27 points, 23 points, 24 points. Just excellent minutes from him. And he's played 35, 35, and 29 minutes in those games. So I think that in this spot against Detroit, who allows, like, they don't allow a lot of threes, but they allow a pretty high 3-point percentage. I'm interested in him. The one thing that I probably will look for though with Miller is I think, because he has scored a decent percentage of his points from 3-point range, I might
Mhm.
not want to bet him in this game just because of the matchup, because the Pistons kind of don't allow as many 3-point attempts as I would probably like. I might look at them a little bit further on. They have some matchups against the Rockets, the Jazz, the Knicks, the Bulls, especially. The Bulls is going to be a spot next Wednesday. This is so far out there. But that's definitely a spot that I'm going to be looking at Brandon Miller as a great catch and shoot guy.
Yeah.
So definitely excited about that.
Yeah, no, I saw you were also targeting Grayson Allen. Yeah, the Bulls are a 3-point funnel, and you want to take the off ball shooters against them. So yeah, definitely makes sense.
Yeah, it's definitely a nice little angle there. But one of the other exciting games that we have on this slate is we have the Phoenix Suns versus the Dallas Mavericks. 1-point spread. The Suns are playing in Dallas, so it's a home game for the Mavericks. And this is going to be a fun game, I think.
Yeah.
When the narrative has been a lot, it's like Luka destroys the Suns.
Hmm.
50 points on Christmas, 34 the game before, like when he played back in what was that? Last March. What are your initial thoughts in this game? It's a super exciting game. You got Luka, Kyrie, and then the Suns'
Yeah.
big three looks healthy. What are you? I think I'm just excited to watch this game. I don't know if I necessarily have a play per se right now, but what are your thoughts, or do you have any initial thoughts on this game?
Yeah, I mean, this is good. This is a game that features a ton of all stars in there. Simply put, it's going to be the top game of the slate of all the games, just as far as like a watchability perspective. Like, if you are a fan of basketball, you got to be watching this game. And something I actually kind of noticed: Devin Booker has back-to-back double doubles against the Dallas Mavericks. So, I mean, if you want to target that,
Oh,
that was something I was looking at from a betting perspective. Back-to-back games with 10 plus assists. But yeah, I don't really have an initial prop right now that I like. This is just going to be a game that probably going to dive into tomorrow morning and look into. But I can't wait to watch it, Joe.
yeah, I think this is just going to be one of those games that's super tight. And what I like about these games, especially like when you're betting on star players, I think superstars are so hard to bet on, because it's just like they're the first guys that come out in a blowout. Their lines are always like super sharp. And I think that when you have these games where you're expecting it to be close, even just based on the spread, but even based on like a cap, I think it should be a close game. I think it should be a good game.
Mm-hmm.
I think it gives you like a little bit more security in terms of the floor for what these guys can do and
That's
like
true.
what their minutes are
Yeah,
going to look like. It almost makes it like a little bit easier if I'm betting on like a superstar and I
yeah.
see that the spread is like -1 or -2. It's like, all right, this should probably be a little bit of a tighter game. Do you ever take like the spread into consideration when you're trying to find a
Absolutely.
player prop? Because then like it's a little bit of a different for like blowout risk.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially for a very, very high superstar over under. Especially like coming into the All-Star game. We talked about this many times. Like, this is the point of the season where like these teams are just still kind of like, it's kind of like the dog days of the season. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
we're just going into All-Star games, and you really want to target the games that actually matter and mean something to teams. There's a ton of games out there that, like, if it was like Phoenix versus, I don't know, Portland, like you don't really
Yeah.
feel comfortable taking the over, but games that actually matter and mean something, yeah, like you feel more comfortable with that the Stars get their stealing minutes.
Yeah. All right. So then this takes us what I think is like, if you're not watching, if you can't get home to, like, if you can't stay up too late and like you're like, Joe, like, you got to give me an earlier game. The other game that I think is super fascinating in this slate is the Oklahoma City Thunder play the San Antonio Spurs,
non-stop
and
great
we get a
games.
matchup. I know we get a matchup between Chet and Wemby. These two have been like going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth for the Rookie of the Year odds. I think Wemby is now the favorite, or it's even, or like they're about to be the same. When these two teams played last, Oklahoma City blew the Spurs' doors off. They won 123-87. Chet had 9 points, 7 boards, and 3 assists. Wemby had 8 points, 14 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 blocks. Chet had 1 block and 2 steals. When you're I'm super excited for this matchup between these two guys. Do you have a preference on who you think is Rookie of the Year right now? I'm putting you on the spot, gun to your head. Do you like Chet or Wemby? Because I know the numbers are interesting. And depending on what you're looking at, a lot of it can go either way. But I'm putting you on the spot. What do you think?
Give me Wembanyama. I think Wembanyama. The last 10, 11 games, his points per minute is Joel Embiid like. You know what I mean? Like what he's doing. They're finally he's finally in rhythm. Popovich is finally running plays to him that are just in design and motion, and he's finally seems to have just been in rhythm and adapted to being in the NBA, which he wasn't in the beginning of the season. And now he's getting 30 plus minutes or so. I think you give it to him. That's my stance right now. What about you?
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I mean, yeah, I'm with Wemby. Like, I like Wemby for the award. I've kind of been saying this. Like, I just, to me, the guy was put in a situation where like he's on a team that's like not good. Like we know the Spurs are not good. Oklahoma City was a team that people were like, they might be good this year, and then now they are good. And then they're saying like, well, Chet's on a better team. Like, he's contributing to winning. The Spurs were not trying to win games. Like, they were running Jeremy fucking Sohan at point guard for 30 games.
Season.
Like, they were not trying to win games. Yeah, so I don't think you can hold that against Wemby. And from a accounting stats perspective, he's got more points per game, more rebounds per game, more assists per game, more steals per game, more blocks per game. He's less efficient than Chet. Chet is much more efficient, but he's also not the number one option on Oklahoma City. He's the number 3 option, honestly. I really think that it's Wemby's. I think that going into the season, when you have that type of narrative, he's living up to it, and he's playing 20 minutes a game. It's insane. I've never seen anything like it. It's not a fucking minutes limit. He's getting 25 and 10 every game.
Yeah, he's insane. And I mean, like you said it best. Like with him, it was just really strange how the Spurs handle it in the beginning. Point Sohan, that was never going to work out. Obviously, you got Trey Jones running the point. Now it's a little bit different. But I mean, if they can start putting together some wins, maybe they trade for a guy Trey Young. Who knows? Maybe they trade for Trey Young and they put together wins. But maybe that helps his case. But I think this is a good buy low, nice value if you want to take a Wembanyama Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, I do like Wemby a lot. Yeah, it's a bold take, hot take, right? But I mean, look, I think that whoever winds up being a plus money, you can kind of build a portfolio over the course of the whole season, which I think a lot of people have been doing. It's just grab who's plus money, and then at the end of the year, you're probably going to win because one of these guys is going to win. One player that I think has been really interesting though for Oklahoma City, and it's not Shea. Shea is obviously incredible. Jalen Williams has been awesome. Look, his points line is set at 19.5 points for this game. He's hit this in 8 of his last 10 games, averaging 21.5 points. Dude has been dynamic. And I want to bet it. I'm a little worried about a blowout though. What do you think about Jalen Williams just generally, regardless of what his props are kind of in this game?
It's been awesome to see the last 5-6 games, him stepping up. He seems to be the clear number 2 option. You didn't know if it was Chet or if it was going to be Chet or Jalen, but it's clearly Jalen Williams, and he's been extremely efficient from the field. He's been running rotations where he'd be like the lead facilitator, like when Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's out. So he's definitely adding some more playmaking to his game. And you see the assist numbers there too, like last couple of games. And I mean, he's been excellent. Straightforward.
Yeah, I really like his game. I think that one of the things that I like about Jalen, and I'm not like a big combo stats guy, but Jalen's kind of one of those guys that I'm comfortable betting like a PRA or an RA type of thing.
Yeah.
And part of it has to do with the fact that I think that he can contribute and have spikes in different categories, right? So like he's normally around like over his last 10 games, for example, for assists, he's at 6.3 assists. That's not even close to the median. The median is really like closer to a 5 or a 6 over the last couple. But he's got spikes at like 10 and 12. And the floor is relatively consistent. When you're betting combo props, do you do you look at them as a guy like that's kind of got potential to get spikes in particular areas, or are you looking at a combo prop? A lot of times it's like, I think this guy's going to get a spike in usage. I want to try to capture all of it because I'm not totally sure how he's going to contribute.
I mean, I mostly like to just stick with points prop. I just like to isolate one type of thing, the most I can control. But if I am going to be like combining it with like a rebounds or assist, you just want to make sure he's in a spot where like there is going to be a ceiling type performance for those, like those statistics. So I mean, if you're coming into it and you see that the books haven't caught up to Jalen Williams's like recent spike in playmaking, then it makes sense to tackle on the assists if you think there's upside there. And I think like there's a nice edge to be had.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so that is our look at the Wednesday slate. We've kind of given you a couple plays that we're looking at, including like that Duren prop.
We got one more.
What else we got?
Yeah, we got the prop bomb under. If anyone is still on here, 47 minutes into the show, probably giving this out tomorrow. It's Jaren Jackson Jr. under 26 or 25.5 points against the Miami Heat. And it's the cheat code is just take the number one. You just take the number one options and against the Miami Heat, and you take their under. I mean, I did it with Paolo, did it with DeJounte Murray, and then DeJounte had like 30 points next game after that. But 9.5 points favorites. You get Terry Rozier potentially making his debut, so you got even more firepower for the Miami Heat, especially in a home game with double-digit spreads. It's going to be tough for Jaren Jackson Jr., especially if Bam Adebayo is trying to make a defensive player of the year, like statement type game, on Jaren Jackson. So that was something that I'm probably playing tomorrow officially. It's under 26.5 or under 25.5 points for Jaren Jackson. Definitely want to make sure I had that out there though.
No, I love it. It just feels like the line is just way too high, just absolutely way too high at that spot. So I love it against Miami, especially in a spot where they could potentially blow them out. So love that Jaren Jackson Jr. under, and you guys got that one here first. So pretty awesome. But Prop Bomb, you know the point of the show that this is, where we go to pods and recs. And what do you have for the listeners? If you need a second, I will make a recommendation first, because I know I put you on the spot a couple times today, but I'll go first. My recommendation is right now, I think one of the things like I've been trying to rip lately is I've been using a lot of lip balm. It's kind of like you're in fucking warm weather over there, so like it's cold here, it's nippy. You got to use a little bit of lip balm. I'm trying not to use the Blistex. My wife got me this Lush, something from Lush, so it's key lime pie. It tastes pretty nice. It's real girly, but it's nice though. So I'm gonna recommend lip balm. And I'm also going to recommend, I just had the most bomb-ass wrap today for dinner. She made me a chicken Caesar wrap. And the key to the wrap, I think, was not only like toasting the tortilla, it was having croutons in the wrap. The croutons were like, give like a nice little like crunch. It kind of elevated it. So I'm going to recommend going out there, getting a chicken Caesar wrap. I wanted the you got to use like the fried chicken, like a little bit of the breaded chicken, and you got to have croutons in it. Like, you don't need a lot, but it does give you like
some
that
little
little
crunch.
bit of
Adds
extra
that little
crunch.
crunch. Yeah.
It's a nice little addition there. So my recommendations are lip balm and throw a couple croutons in a chicken Caesar wrap and call it a day. What do you got for us?
All right. I mean, I guess I'll do a food recommendation too. I've been going to Just Salads. Do they have that up there? Just Salads? It's like a little like a fast food place.
We got Salad Works. We got like sweet greens. We got like all the bullshit.
Okay, so if you're ever at Just Salads, get the chicken poblano bowl. That is like that's my favorite bowl I get all the time. And from a more serious type, just like motivational, I guess like recommendation, whether it's like going to the gym, starting a new hobby, or doing something like new, it's going to be tough at first. Like this is just, I hate to be serious, but like it's going to be tough at first, but you have to go through it, and your future self is going to appreciate you for it. That's just, it's kind of like the message. Anything, just help it with anything. Your future self is going to appreciate like the struggles that it takes to get there.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's all about like the grind and like being able to push through. And I think that's good advice from you. It's like keep your head up, keep pushing forward. If you do get a salad from Just Salads, maybe get it tossed. And just keep pushing forward and doing the best that you can. And I think that one of the things that can make you the best person that you can be and continue to make yourself the better that you can be is to sign up for props.cash and get 25% off that first month. You guys know, we talked about it. We're talking about some of the hit rates. I'm literally looking at it right now while we're recording to try to help me with our analysis here. They've got the charts, they've got the hit rates, they've got how the line has been moving on a particular player, and they have like their own analytics and like some of the splits, home splits, away splits, their regular season versus the East versus the West, at home, on the road, what have you. And then you can even say like, how is this player done with or without somebody else? And you can get that for 25% off your first month with code Dellera25. So Prop Bomb, before we let everybody go, tell everybody what your handles are, where they can find you on socials if they somehow don't already follow you, and just so the listeners have it.
Yeah, Prop Bomb, PROPBOMB, Prop Bomb on Twitter. I also 4 months ago opened up a Discord for myself, just for any additional plays that I do. It's like my full-time job right now, so I put all my effort into it. If you can't catch all the free articles and you want the full package, you go in the Discord. It's $1 a day, and you get high quality, top-notch analysis, and I'm always transparent, win or loss. So that's where if you want to find all my plays, you can go there and follow me on Twitter.
Oh yeah. So thanks again for joining us today, Prop Bomb. It's been a blast, and let's continue to cash that.